Hey everyone, I am Adam with Real World Income Streams, and today I am with Shannon from Roadside Republic. And you started off selling peaches at pop-up stands. And first thing I want to talk about before we get into anything is you do not actually grow the food; you source the food, right?
That's correct. Technically, I'm a reseller, which means, I buy low, sell high. I'm a broker in essence.
Okay, so for the people out there who think this is cool, you don't actually need to have a lot of land and grow the stuff. You can source it.
That's right. That's exactly correct.
Perfect. Okay, so why don't you get into how you got into this? How is it going? What is it?
Yeah. So back in 2013, I was going through a transition and decided I wanted to do something completely different. And I actually I was a reporter and a marketer, a copywriter. I worked for ad agencies. I did a lot of copywriting, a lot of reporting. And then my family had a software development business. And so I was doing a lot of sales and operations. And I wanted to do something completely different. My dad got really sick. He got cancer and eventually passed away within a couple of years from that. And at that time, I was just looking to do something that was really tangible, right? That you could hold, a commodity that you could see and sell and, hold and talk about, not something like software, which, is not exactly tangible. And so a friend of mine who is from South Carolina told me for about 10 years that I needed to come out and look at his roadside peach stands because he was making a ton of money. And I'm like, what's a ton of money, Rob? And, he would run 3 or 4, maybe 5 roadside stands at the max across a summer. So we're talking Memorial Day to Labor Day. So 3 months, no more than 4. And he was doing about $100,000 in net profit just off of a handful of roadside stands. So I heard these promises and these stories for about 4 years before I decided during that time when my dad was so sick that I would go out to South Carolina and see what it was all about. And that's exactly what I did. I took my son, who was 11 at the time. We stayed in South Carolina for an entire summer, and we learned the peach business from the ground up, not as a grower or orchard owner, but strictly as a reseller, so that we could see what kind of opportunity is involved here. And why are people so crazy about peaches? And why can you make so much money? And boy, I found out that summer. I found out exactly how to make a fortune off selling peaches. And I learned absolutely everything you can possibly do wrong because I did it wrong. We had 100 stands the very first year I got started. So we were running 100 stands across a single summer. And that provides massive opportunity to screw things up. And when you're operating at that scale, you pivot very quickly. You learn from your mistake, and then you right that error, and then you keep going. So that's been 11 years ago now, and I am still selling peaches. The business has evolved over those 11 years. When we initially got started, we did like old school mom and pop roadside stand, farm stands. And so that really means like right off the side of the road. And we did these big white tents with red and white banners and some flags. And that's all we needed to compel, right, people to stop, because back in the memory banks of all Americans is this nostalgic, sentimental memory of roadside stands and farm stands. And so our memory is conditioned to when we see that and we see a sign that says freshly picked or fresh from the farm, we stop. And we know 2 things psychologically when we stop at a roadside stand: that we are going to be happy and that we're going to spend some money. We just don't know how happy, and we just don't know how much money we're spending. So over the last 11 years, I have refined this business blueprint, which is based on this old school, like mom and pop business model, which is the farm stand. And today, most people assume that farm stands are dead. Like, what? You can still make money doing this? Oh my gosh, can you make so much money? I just had a conversation, Adam, this week. Somebody who just joined us and is opening her very first peach stand. She got on the phone, and the first thing she said was, "Girl, you weren't lying when you said this is an ATM machine, because all you got to do is put up your banner that says fresh peaches, and people stop. and they're just putting out cash, for peaches. But it's just one of those products that people are primed to associate with happiness. And so that type of transaction just creates a lot of cash, quite honestly,
Right.
because people are so happy. So today we still operate roadside stands. The business has evolved where we do mobile pop-ups. So we'll be at a shopping market, we'll be inside a farmer's market venue. We do mobile farmers market stands. So we will go into a neighborhood and set up for a couple of hours. We do music festivals. We do fairs. I mean, we do it all. What is consistent is how happy people are when they see our banners for freshly picked peaches. That's the only advertising we ever need to do. Like, we do not do Google ads or Facebook ads or TikTok ads, nothing, because 80% of our traffic, our customers, are new every single day because it's an impulse, right?
Right.
And
So
so
you don't need to do those ads because you're picking locations where there's going to be a lot of people.
exactly. And all they need to do is see the signage, and they're compelled to stop and they're compelled to make a purchase. So it's like the best kept business you've never heard of, and the barrier to entry is so low. So the risks are so low to get into it. I'm talking capital cost, knowledge, experience, but the upside, the reward is tremendous because you learn on the job. The net profit is amazing. It's shocking how much net profit you can make selling peaches.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that other person who called you up and said, we're making a lot, because people watching right now, Shannon has a program where she teaches you entirely how to do this. What do you learn in your course?
So, since selling peaches, there are a couple of barriers or obstacles that people typically have when they think about this. Number one, I'm not a grower. Boom, we knock that barrier down, obstacle immediately. You don't need to be. Well, I don't know anything about peaches. That's okay. You don't need to know. Well, I don't know where to get peaches. That's okay. You don't need to know. I know all of this stuff now. After 11 years, I know all of the orchards in the country. And so no matter where somebody is, I can help them source peaches from practically anywhere in the US. I mean, we are growing peaches now in Idaho, Utah, Colorado, California, certainly, Texas, all along the East Coast. I mean, peaches they're literally everywhere. And so no matter where you want to set up a roadside stand, you can get access to fresh produce. And so when people join the Peach Academy, these are the sorts of things I teach them. But then we even go like really basic, because people are coming to this, and if they want to just do it as a side hustle, they may not have the business knowledge or experience. So, I mean, we start with basics. Like, do you want to be a sole proprietor? Do you want to be an LLC? Maybe you should consider S Corp. And we just talk about the differences. We talk about sales tax, because if you're selling a commodity, you need to do your research and understand if you need to collect and report sales tax in your state. Fortunately, a lot of states in the US do not require sales tax on fresh produce. So then that frees us up. We don't have to collect it or report it. But each state is a little bit different. So we go through like how to source it, how to sell it, how to set up your roadside stand, how to actually sell, because we do something which is very storytelling based. And so it's an experience that we teach people to provide to the consumer, so that when the consumer stops at the stand, they're looking for something specific. They're looking for a certain type of experience. And so we train people on how to provide that. And that's just mostly engagement, understanding how to make people feel seen, heard, and understood, right? And then talking about the peaches. So, I mean, we even have a module in the course which is about what to do with the waste, because obviously it's perishable, products, and so you're going to have inevitably something that spoils or goes bad or gets overripe. What do you do with that? Well, we have perfected this so well. We sell it all. We never throw any overripe produce in the garbage. We make money off every single bit of it. The only thing we do at the end of the day is just recycle cardboard, and that's it. So that whole course teaches you everything that, and then 200 things you've never thought of.
Oh, that's good because I wondered what you do with the waste too. It just, it's not a waste of money. Have you had any students who just don't do peaches? They went to something else, like say apples or tomatoes or something.
Yes, and depending on the part of country you're in what that locale or region really goes crazy for. Of course, the northern part of the U.S., Wisconsin, Minnesota, lots of apple orchards, and so that's a real specialty up there. If you get up in the Pacific Northwest, it's like cherries. And so those are things that are locally sourced. And so I've had students who've set up in all of these states, by the way. And so I've really learned with them over the last 11 years what those specific regions like. New Mexico, for example, hatch chili peppers. Those sell really well there. Those sell into Colorado too. And during hatch chili pepper season, like every convenience store parking lot has a hatch chili pepper, right, tent in it where people are just selling these things from the roadside. So yes, there are different parts of the country which specialize in different things. And honey is another one. If it's accessible and easy for them to get peaches and that they're locally sourced, I mean, we can truck peaches all the way from South Carolina to Minnesota. We can do that. At some point, there is a price break where it might be prohibitive, but we try to get peaches for all of the students that are just within proximity. So maybe a couple of states. And it's easier and easier and easier to do that now. But there are other things to specialize in depending on where you're located.
Now, you say specialize. Do most people just specialize in the one thing, or do they have a plethora, or is it better to specialize?
I think as somebody who has a roadside produce stand, you do want to specialize in what the people love. So, for example, in West Texas, where I'm in Texas, there it may not be peaches; it's watermelon and cantaloupe, and so that's predominantly what people are selling there. Those two things, I mean, you can't sell enough of that. But you also want to have products that are complementary to what you specialize in. So, for example, I've been a peach broker now for 11 years. I also specialize in honey and Texas watermelon and cantaloupe. So fruit's where it at. Fruit is where it's at. People want fruit. You can backfill with things like tomatoes and okra and like pickled things. Like, a lot of producers now are pickling okra or cauliflower or green beans or whatever. You can sell those from your roadside stand too. And it's good to have those products, but you want to have one that stands out, that makes you unique, right? Your produce stand. Not that you're going to have any competition, because quite honestly, most of the farmers markets that I go to in the US, if I'm setting up there, I am usually the only person at a farmers market selling produce. I may be one of two. That may be more typical of the western part of the United States. It is a lot in Texas, but there's just not that many people selling produce. But you want to have something, the one product that really sets you up. People identify you as an expert and the authority in that.
Big important question for the people watching is, you already mentioned that you don't want something that costs a lot of money to start up. So just how much does it cost to start your first day?
Good question. I recommend that the startup capital cost is $1,500. And that's if you take my big checklist, $1,500. That's it. And if you take my big checklist and you get everything on it, including your opening day produce inventory, that's all you're going to have to spend. But my son and I, who's now 21, he's been doing this with me since he was 11. When he was about 17, he took like his Christmas money and his birthday money, and we ran a social media experiment. He took his $200 and we said, let's see if we can open a highly profitable stand with $200. And he did it. So he found a great location. He went and bought $200 worth of peaches. He had a ratty old table, a handwritten sign, an umbrella, and $200 worth of peaches. And he sold out within, 4 hours, maybe not even that long, 3 hours. So then he took the money, the profit, and he went and he bought $700 worth of peaches. And he just kept rolling that until the end of the week. He had his $1,500 of startup capital. So he could go buy his tent. his chairs, his baskets, his bags, everything that he needed. Plus, he had his regular inventory money, so he could go buy, $800 worth of peaches for the day and then sell through that. So you can, that's why I say it's such low risk because you can start with $200. One of the cool things about the business is people don't expect super fancy or sophisticated or really nice signage and nice tents. All they care about is how's this produce. And so you can have a handwritten sign and a crappy table and an umbrella and still make a ton of money. That's how easy it is.
You mentioned farmers markets and roadside stands, but when we were on the phone before, you said a whole bunch of different places you sell it. Can you just fire off some of the places?
We sell at music festivals, at fairs like local county fairs. We have a mobile farmers market. So we have a truck, and that truck goes and sets up inside a neighborhood. We work with homeowners associations every year, and they will actually book us into a neighborhood. So 3 nights of the week, we are running HOA mini farmers markets. And we may set up at the at the community rec center or the pool, for example. And the community knows that we're there because the HOA has promoted it through the newsletter, Facebook page, email list, etc. And so for 2 hours, we are just slammed, and tomatoes, that's a tremendous way to make a great deal of money in just 2 hours. We do shopping markets, so all across the country, there are these shopping markets that are popping up, like in the parking lots.
Works everywhere
breweries.
From any.
So we're always at some sort of brewery fest or a wine festival. We might be outside a wine shop where there's a cheese guy and then a sourdough bread guy and then cookies and now we have peaches. We started this thing last year because we're now doing so many big events where people are walking and shopping and eating, and we call it a roadie. So it's like a concession stand boat, and then we put like on the go produce in there. So things you can eat with your fingers very quickly: grapes, bananas, apples, peaches, strawberries, blueberries, and we call it a roadie. And so it is so cool to see people at a music festival where there's going to be beer, wine, like hot dogs. Here in Texas, we have, tacos and fried foods. And then we've got people eating fruit from our stand. So the festivals and fairs have been really good. The shopping markets are really good to us. And sometimes those are night markets, which is really cool. And sometimes they're daytime markets.
Yeah, I didn't know all the different places because when I first started watching you, I just kind of thought you got to have somewhere on the side of the road, and maybe not a lot of people have access to that, but there are farmers markets, VFW holds events. There's a bunch of places. Do you help people within the course to figure out who to contact or maybe some conversations to have? Because you might have to pay to be at some of these places, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. What I suggest to people who, if they want to test and see, they don't want to go really big, say, and set up a permanent tent. We do a big 10 by 20 or a 20 by 40 tent. You can go on Facebook, go into your local area, your city, town, go to the events tab of Facebook and look under the shopping category. And then just type in market and you'll see all of the markets in your area. And all you do is contact those people who are coordinating the market. And typically it might be $25, maybe $40, $50 to set up on any given Saturday or Sunday. I mean, that's nominal compared to the earning potential. So that's one quick hit, easy way to find those kinds of shopping markets or artisan markets, is what they call them here.
All right, so I talked to you before. You will help people source things. That's a big thing that people don't know how to do, is how to source it. But when they join with you, you can help them do that. But my question is, where do people store this?
Yep. So that's a big question people have when they get started. They want to know how much space do they have or need to store items. And then what if they don't have a truck, to transport produce? What do they do? So I want to tell people that you can even do this business out of an apartment because you don't need a bunch of space for stuff. You can actually rent a facility such as get a little public storage place, a little 10 by 10. You can store your equipment there. The produce produce that you acquire, you do it. I teach you how to do just-in-time delivery and just-in-time inventory. Because with produce, you have to turn it really fast. We don't refrigerate anything, so we don't do cold storage, and that was a decision I made because once you put produce in cold storage, it aborts and stops the ripening and sweetening process. So we like the customer to be able to enter the tent and smell, right, the peaches, because that's part of the experience. So we don't put anything in cold storage. So you buy just what you need for like a 3-day window, and then you have to turn it before it goes overripe.
All right. Well, Shannon, thank you for being on.
All right. Thanks, Adam, for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome.